This is the dream of the White House. The dream started where me and a group of a couple of other people, actually there was 3 other people, we were traveling across what seemed to be farm fields. The fields were dry, were dusty. It was barren. There were groupings of trees like you would see in the Midwest around farm fields, in between farm fields, but all the trees were dead. They just looked dead. There was no leaves on them, nothing like that. Almost like it was wintertime, but it wasn't winter. The sky was overcast, and there was a ominous humming that was happening everywhere. It was just everywhere. That's the best way I could describe it. Like a loud humming sound. As we were journeying along through this field, we came to what seemed to be a crossroads. And there was dirt over the roads, like nobody's driven on these roads for a while, stuff like that. There was a 4-way intersection. At 3 of the quarters of the intersection, it was just fields, farm fields. On the 4th corner was a White House. This would be, I would say, an early 1900s 2-story White House. Typical front porch, longer, skinny type house. And just past the house was a mechanic shop on the same side of the street, right next to it, with all these old abandoned cars. The building that would be I guess you could say the garage, was all disheveled, torn apart, everything along those lines. Just abandoned. There's dust over everything. All the glass was broken. And just past the garage was, I guess you could say, would be a school. I'm reflecting on the fact that there are schools similar to this around the Midwest. You get out in farm country where it's a 1-level brick school. There's a little upper portion that is basically just where the gym is, and just simple brick school building. And doors were falling off. All the glass windows were broken. It was abandoned. Everything, all the landscaping, everything was dead. It was just dust and dirt everywhere. And then there was nothing. Again, just more farm fields. So there's 3 buildings. Well, back to the White House. The White House was not disheveled. It was okay. It was worn, but it was a typical 1900s farmhouse. We walked up to it, and we noticed that as we walked up, there was a tree, a large tree in the backyard. And that tree had leaves on it, green leaves. It was the only tree around with green leaves on it. We walked up to the house. We walked into the house, up the front porch, which was a few steps. There was a front porch, and then in the front door. And as we walked in the front door, the store changed to being a pizza parlor / convenience store, a little mom and pop convenience store. As you walked in the front door, on the left was a counter. And then as you looked in, throughout the rest of the first floor, there was a couple of tables, little round tables, with the old school 2-pattern crosshatch tablecloths on it that were plastic. And then there was a back door, and the front door and the back door were open. There were screen doors over them, but the doors were open. So me and the 3 people that were with me walked in, and we were immediately greeted. There was an older lady, whitish, old hair, behind the front counter. There was no lights on, no electricity. And we greeted her, and her response was, I'm so glad you made it. We are so glad you're here. And she's like, I'll be right back. And so we came on in, and as we came into what would be the restaurant, looked like a pizza parlor, like I said, we started to take our rucksacks off. Evidently, we had rucksacks on. We had helmets, we had flap jackets, stuff along those lines. Not saying we were military, I'm just saying we had that type of stuff on. Now these, anyways, so the old lady came back down the steps, followed by an old gentleman. Both of them were frail and old, skinny. Glasses on the gentleman. He was balding, he had white hair, clean shaven though. And they were like, we're so glad you're here. Let us get you some water. Go on and make yourselves at home. I was like, okay. So we went out back on the back porch. We took off our boots, sat down on the steps, shook out our boots of the sand, stuff along those lines. Took off our helmets. Then she came out onto the back porch with a tray with old bottles, glass bottles, Coca-Cola bottle. There was a Balls bottle, if you know what that drink is. It was a blue bottle called Balls, Bawls. And some other bottles, a Sprite bottle. They were all glass, and they were old bottles, but she had filled them with water, and it was clean water. And she's like, here you go. And we're like, thank you so much. This is so great. We started drinking the water and this and that. And two of the people that were with me went back inside, and they were in there goofing around with, there was two pinball machines in there, one on either side of the seating area for the pizza place, so to speak. And the pinball machines, of course, they didn't work, but they were acting like they were working, and they were goofing around with them. It was two males, I'll say in that way. They were younger, probably in their late teens, early 20s. I got up and came back in, but before I came, I noticed that in the backyard there was a little bit of grass that was green around the base of the tree. And the tree that's the same tree that was green, had green leaves. No other trees, even on the property, had any leaves. They were all dead. All the other grass was dead. And this tree was starting to lose leaves, though. The leaves were starting to fall off. And they were falling off as green, though. They weren't falling off, turning colors. They were just green and falling. So I got up and walked back through, opened the screen door, walked back in, and the old lady and the old man were at the front desk, right inside the front door. And I went over and talked to them for a moment. And what I talked to them about, I don't remember. I just remember it was just very quick, a couple sentences. And then they said, well, we're glad you're here. We're going to be retiring now. We'll be going upstairs. If you need anything, help yourself. We are glad you're here. And with that, they proceeded to go upstairs. Don't know what that means. Don't know what's in reflection to, what retiring could mean in that circumstance. I would think that it would mean to go to bed. I proceeded to look around. The two younger guys were still goofing around with the pinball machines. I went out front onto the front steps, and I leaned against the post, took off my helmet, just staring out at the wasteland with the groups of trees that are all dead in the distance and this and that, just hearing the hum. Kind of like an air conditioning hum, but it was everywhere. And the other person that was with our group, the third person, that was not the two young men, it was a third person, it was a female. She came out and sat down on the front steps, took off her helmet, and she looked up at me and she's like, is this what we were thinking it would be? Is this what you thought it would be? And I pulled out a cigarette, which is odd, because you would imagine in a post-apocalyptic type of scenario, if this was that there would be no cigarettes. But I pulled out a cigarette and I lit it, took a deep draw, breathed it out, and I was like, this is not what we expected. This is nothing what we expected. And that was the end of it. I have had that dream a dozen times. Same scenario, same everything. No new details. It's the same details every time. The clothes I was wearing, they were green cargo pocket pants. I had black boots on. I had some type of blue shirt and a army style jacket, a helmet. I had a black backpack that was like a rucksack. The other people had army type jackets on with helmets. I mean, all the details, they've never changed all dozen times I've had this dream. And I've had this dream, like I said, a dozen times over the past 30, maybe 31 years. And every time it just shakes me awake. I'm like, what is this? What is going on here? So, but just sharing it, someone needs to hear this. Over and out.